Oh, wait, here, I can do a starting soon. No, I'll do that another time. And hey, hello again, everyone. Hello once again. It's a nice Saturday. Hope everybody's having a good weekend, enjoying the nice sunny weather, at least here in 4 degrees, Montreal, maybe 7 if you check your phone. So, I'm trying to put together a series to try to help reconcile the differences in the scientific community and with the Bible with respect to the world that we live in and why we're here. And came up the other day, I had a discussion with someone who's developing a very keen awareness of where we are in the world and why things are so different. And they hadn't, to be honest with you, they hadn't read the Bible. And I told them, you know what, that's a very good thing. I'm glad you haven't. Because, see, one of the big problems is, and they mentioned it, that there are so many different versions and translations out there. You don't know what to believe, and it's true, you know. Not just that, but you don't know where to start, and why would you want to pick up the Bible and start reading it? And a lot of things, not necessarily for the religious part, but, it's a book like any other book. Of course, it's more than that, but, just have no clue what it is. All you know is what you've been told from friends or family or some religious class or something, that this is what it is. But there's lots of things that people have missed. And to this day, I'm quite shocked that with we have access to Google and many other methods of searching the internet back in my day when I was a kid, the only way I could expand my knowledge was with the dusty old Collier's encyclopedias from 1967 with black and white photos, and believe it or not, that carried me all through my high school years in the 80s, right? But nowadays we have better means to be able to extract information from professional sources, and use our gray matter to come to better realizations of, what's this? Maybe we've been had all along. Okay, what's making all that noise? Okay, maybe it's me. Very sensitive equipment here. So what I'm getting at here is with Genesis, there's lots of things that people overlooked. And I figured the best way to read the Bible would be to start with Genesis and to spend quite a bit of time just to understand it, because it helps to understand the language of the Bible, because it's just like, language of any other instruction set. There's a special way that it speaks to you. And this is important because when you want to communicate information to people, you want to make sure you get as concise. And thankfully, we have a writing system by the Hebrews that incorporated an alphanumeric character set, if you will, that wasn't evident back then, thousands of years ago, but today, because we use this in computer technology, we're able to understand that, that we know today was structured hexadecimal language that is used for computer programming. That is another conversation that I'll do for another time, but because you see, the whole point of this is kids in school are confused. They don't like going for the most part. They'd rather stay home, and I can understand why, because there's always a confusion between what's taught in the books and what's really actually out there. And quite often the schools are very far behind. I didn't realize how far behind they were until recently when I started exploring, tendered papers for myself and read the articles and realized that a lot of these scientists are talking blindly, meaning that they have a language for math, they have a language for physics and chemistry, and they can speak very eloquently about it. But when it comes to grasping bigger concepts and putting what they know together into a reasonable form that people can understand, well, that just escapes them. So I'm going to go over with you just the first book of Genesis, Genesis 1. So here I'm going to give you my interpretation. Oops, not 11, 1. And my point is that I hope you will be able to see how we can prove that what science says about the universe being billions of years old is correct. And that also the point of view that the Earth, as we know it, is rather young, as the young Earth creation scientists boldly speak about. But what they also boldly speak about, which I am in disagreement with, is that they believe that the whole of creation was done in 6 days. Meaning from the very first verse here in Genesis 1:1 to the end here, Genesis 1:31, that everything was done in 6 literal 24-hour days. And unfortunately with that, I do not agree. And I want to show you the reasons why. And hopefully this will put to rest the argument so that these people, these Christians, who want to go around and beat people over the head about, well, 6 days, 6 days, 6 days. But there's big things that they're missing out here. All right, so let's start from the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And we'll note that both heaven and earth are singular. So that means, well, if the earth that we know is singular, well, the heaven that is being spoken about is singular too. Okay? This event, when it happened, we don't know. We have no idea. There's no proof to know. Could be millions of years, could be billions of years. So on that part, that is where I agree with scientists that that's the age of the universe. Okay, now the next verse is where all the controversy begins. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So people want to believe that this is the very next act in the sequence of creation, but let me point out a couple of things here. It says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And if God had just finished creating the heaven and the earth, there is no way that this would be possible, because it is very clearly written that in him there is no darkness, and that God is light. Okay? So this clearly makes you wonder, okay, well, there's something a little bit more about this. And we see that the words Spirit of God are capitalized, which means that it's not talking about a element, but we're talking about a real person. So a real person, the Spirit of God, otherwise known as the Holy Spirit, was the one responsible for restoring the earth in its frozen, which it was, frozen water state. And you'll see why that water was frozen. Okay. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. This light is not the primordial light of the universe. This is God's light. This is his light. Okay? Because there was a darkness that had occurred in verse 2, and this darkness was universal. Okay, so the whole universe, at some point in time, there was a type of darkness that enveloped it, and this was due to a rebellion of Satan and his, then known Lucifer, and a third of the angels, as we find out later in the Bible, that were responsible for the commotion that we see here. And why was that? Well, in short, Lucifer was given reign of the earth. Okay, everything that you see there in verse 2, and what would we call in between verse 1 and verse 2, or the gap, or the Genesis gap, is basically, you have places in the Bible that talk about this, where Lucifer had a kingdom, he was in charge of the earth, he had a mercantile system in place, it was not only limited to the earth, but also maybe throughout regions of the solar system and the rest of space. So essentially we have something like Star Trek happening in between verses 1:1 and 1:2. And due to some type of rebellion, the earth had to be remade, order had to be restored, because Lucifer was put out of his position in the heavenly realm, and the rest of Genesis speaks about the restoration. Okay, not the creation, the restoration of the earth and everything in it to prepare man to take over Lucifer's place. Simple as that. How do we know that it was a restoration and not a creation? Well, very simply. Okay. Verse 1 created the heaven and the earth. Let's keep going. Before we do, I need some water. One moment. Let me put you guys on mute. Okay, I have returned. Okay. So, as I was saying here, the restoration work was done because, as we see here, that in verse 4, God saw the light and it was good and divided light from the darkness. So the darkness that enveloped the universe was done away with. And then God's light was allowed to be seen again in the realm of space that we can see above our heads. Okay? And then God called the light day and darkness night. Okay, and evening and morning, first day. And we keep going, and then we see that God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the water. Okay, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So, if I could draw it out somehow. Long story short, the water that we have above, okay, so where is it? So a firmament means something firm, something solid, okay? So we have a firmament above, we have a firmament below, we have an expansive space in between, okay? And above this firmament, we have heaven, and this firmament is actually a sea of glass, and the sea of glass is descriptively explained what it is in a couple books in the Bible, I believe in Zechariah, in the Old Testament, and in Revelation in the New Testament, sea of glass. Okay, underneath that sea of glass, okay, we have expansive space, and how we get from one to the other, perhaps a wormhole. Okay, we don't know yet, but we will find out. And then the firmament below, okay, so the waters that were in between the two, okay, this is where we have the earth. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were also above the firmament. And so the waters were divided, pardon me. And God called the firmament heaven. Okay, so that's on the top part. And the evening and the morning were the second day. And then God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. So that's where we have the earth and dry land, and the water that was on top there. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. So what we have here is that the water that was permanent, or was that flooded the whole universe, all right, parts were drained elsewhere, but another part, when we were concerned on the earth, went into the ground, okay, into the ground, down in the ground of the earth. And we know this because we have proof that we have heavy water, deuterium water, kilometers below the Earth's surface. Okay, stores of water larger than all the water that we have on the top of the planet that we see in the oceans and stuff. There's quite a lot more. Okay, trapped in rocks, trapped in different forms, but the water is nonetheless there. Okay, so we keep going. Let the dry land appear. So dry land appeared. Okay, so if you want to call this Pangea with, I don't know, Pangea with a few seas here and there. Oops, I'm getting messages. One moment, let me take care of this. Okay, so Pangea, where you have more of a land mass and less water. Okay, so something like that. And we see here that God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb, and the yielding seed. So you see, grass was already there. Grass wasn't created. The dry land wasn't created. See, Jesus said, let the waters under the earth be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. He didn't say, let me create dry land. No, let the dry land appear. Same thing with the grass. Let the earth bring forth grass. It didn't say create grass and create flowers and create seeds. No. Everything was already there because, again, in Genesis 1:1, the earth was created with all the grass and trees and animals and whatever you have it, and spiritual beings populating the earth. That was already happening. Okay, and then when it got flooded under, right? And then when the waters dissipated, then the grass and the herbs and the trees were able to revive themselves. But guess what? It was still dark because the sun had been extinguished. Because you see, and the evening and the morning were the third day. And then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, one great light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And oh, by the way, he made stars also. Okay, so all of that happened on day 4, right? And that's why you can't say that, the sun was created on day 1, okay, which it was, but then how do you explain what happened in verse 4? And I'm pretty sure that many a person has brought this up to their spiritual pastor or leader or whoever it is and said, hey, how come? And then they're basically given an answer or something akin to go fly a kite or go ask your mother or something ridiculous like that, but never give a full explanation because they want to not take into consideration, there's some things that your eyes and common sense will tell you about the age of the earth. And then when you're reading certain texts, you take your time, it's very clear that there's a very big difference between the words create and made. Okay, very big difference. And we keep going here. So 2 good lights, and then set them, and saw that was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. And you see, people want to say that, or these Christians want to say that, Lucifer fell somewhere in the 6 days of creation. Well, no, that's not true, because at the very end, the last thing it says, that God saw that everything he had made, and behold, it was very good. Okay, so there's no good in saying that Lucifer fell in there, because that was not a good thing. And had that happened then, it would have been mentioned, all right? But there's no mention of it. So don't put things in there that are not there, right, if you haven't read the whole story. Okay, so we're going to keep going here just a little bit there. So 4th day, and then we see here, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly moving creatures that have life, and fowl that fly above the air and in the firmament. So fish, then birds, and God created. See here, created great whales. Okay, and people want to say, it's not a whale, it's a this or it's a that. But, there's a verse later on Jesus talks about, right? Well, it wasn't the whale that swallowed Jonah. So he made it, right? So how he made it, I'll show you at the end of this video in about 2 minutes. So there it says great whales, and there you have it. So all the animals, including dinosaurs, all that existed and were created during the 6 days of the restoration of the earth. Okay, how long it took for Adam and Eve to fall from after that? I don't know. Some guess maybe less than a year. Okay, it could very well be. Okay, but the long of it is that you can marry science and the Bible very easily when you take the time to think things out carefully. Okay, and there's no way to prove that we come from monkeys or from some descendant of a rodent or some type of mammal billions of years ago, and before that evolved from some other lower life form, because we would have today, right now, the same type of life forms that you would see in Star Trek. Okay, you would have humans, right? Hominids, whatever you want to call it, looking like Andorians, blue skin, white hair, and antenna. Or you'd see people looking like Orion slave people, right? Green skin, green hair, all that stuff. You'd see, the whole gamut of the Star Wars, Star Trek, plethora of human-like beings walking about, and nobody would think anything of it. Nobody would freak out because we all evolved from the same common goop, right? But no, we did not evolve from the same common goop. We evolved from the same common creator. And that creator made sure that, anthropomorphic, word of the week for me to practice saying, people, that look human, right, can only reproduce with our type, right? We cannot reproduce with other animals unless we do it in the lab, right? Genetically speaking, which we're able to do today. One of the lovely things of CRISPR, right? Common ancestor is our creator. Plain and simple, and the creator explains to you in the very first verse who he is. And if I click here, and we see it in the Hebrew very, very clearly, here's the word for God, Elohim, plural, meaning more than one. And here's the word for the Aleph Tab, Etz. But this is the signature of the Creator. His name is Jesus Christ. That's right, in the first verse. So here you have the Elohim, plural, and here's one member, Jesus Christ. And then when we go to verse 2, oops, the other way. Oops, the other way. There, see, verse 2. And Spirit of God. Spirit of God. Okay. Again, Elohim, Ruah for spirit, Elohim, and plural of it, this is Holy Spirit. Okay, so that's why we know that there's more than one. And the other way we know that there's more than one is when we get to chapter 2, which will be our next topic. And it says right here, and it says right here, oh boy, see, it's not good that man is alone. Okay, and let us see, and the rib, and the bone. Wait, see, I'm missing a hair. So I'm gonna have to search let us. It is right under my nose, but here. This is in the first chapter. See my bad. And God said, let us make man. Okay, there we go. Let us make man in our image. So us meaning more than one. Okay, so that will be a talk for another day. But I just want to go over that with you so that you can go back and tell your teacher. You can go back and tell your person that you have to pass this test to say, well, no, I don't agree with you that their thing was billions of years old and that we came from monkeys and that this and that, because we have no proof of that. So you can take that argument to your school, to your superior, whoever it is that you depend upon for getting by the day, because it's not fair to be bamboozled with false information. And my goal of these short little podcasts and of my TNG website, which I invite you all to come take a look at, is to help you de-bamboozleize your mind from all the false information that's out there, and to find the straight and narrow, because when your mind is in tune and you've eliminated most of the garbage that keeps you bogged down during, the hours of your day, then you find yourself being more productive mentally. Okay, because it's more important to be productive mentally than physically, because no point thinking, yes, I can in your mind, but your body is worn down because too many years of neglect and of bad information circulating. So once you start circulating the right information, then the right attitude and the right go-getter spirit will stay with you no matter what. So have yourselves a rest of a good Saturday. I hope you enjoyed this little podcast. And until next time, take